Well, money to fight terror on U.S. soil is the subject of a big debate going on Capitol Hill, and just who is getting how much. Brian Wilson in Washington with the very latest. Hey, Brian.
Hi, Neil. When you're the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee and you represent New York and you find that New York City has had its Homeland Security grant money cut, what do? Well, if you're Congressman Peter King, you call a hearing where everyone gets to complain. You hear complaints from folks like New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
There are places that should get the most of the Homeland Security money because they have targets.
Well, the fact is New York City does get the most grant money by far, $124 million, or about 18% of the 2006 grant money pie. In past years, they received roughly 19% of the available monies. But what you didn't hear a lot about in this hearing today is that this time around, Congress gave DHS a much smaller pie to cut up. They trimmed DHS grant monies by $125 million. The other factor, DHS says they have determined that other places like Omaha, Kansas City, Portland have legitimate security concerns. Maybe New York City and D.C. have taken the big terrorism hits, but other cities are also at risk.
44 of the 46 urban areas saw their relative risk measure rise this year, in some cases by 3- or 4-fold. Why? Because we are improving in our ability to measure urban risk beyond the borders of New York City and Washington.
Well, that did not satisfy the mayors and police chiefs of New York or D.C. who count on a certain amount of money for what they call boots on the ground. DHS doesn't like to grant money so that it can be used for recurring costs like manpower. They preferred that the money be used for equipment and security improvements. Mayor Anthony Williams said today he's still hoping these decisions can be reversed. Neil, back to you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Well, does New York have a legitimate gripe? After all, its anti-terror funding was cut by 40%, and it is definitely a terror target. Well, the majority of you who voted on our FoxNews.com poll today say that the government was right to cut back on the money given to New York. And my next guest agrees with that. And he's a New Yorker, with us now syndicated columnist Kevin McCullough, who says New York should stop all the whining. He's author of MuscleHead Revolution. Pretty harsh words for New Yorkers from a New Yorker.
Well, it is, but
Why?
you know, Neil, my radio audience chimed in on this. This is about a 2-week-old story, and when you look at the numbers, New York got $125 million in the current budget. It is a much smaller budget from Washington. L.A. was second with about $80 million coming their way, and then the rest of the cities on the list, far, far less. You're talking about a city like Jacksonville that only gets $7 to $9 million in terms of total amount. And are we to say, as the center, the heartbeat of America, that we're the only city that needs to be looked out for? I don't think that's a legitimate argument. I think most New Yorkers recognize that.
But a lot of New Yorkers, like Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton and former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, present Mayor Michael Bloomberg, present Governor Pataki, all say that New York's been targeted before. New York has the most tempting targets. New York should be protected.
Well, the government study also showed, the Homeland Security survey also showed that we weren't very effective in some of the implementations of what we put into effect.
We being New Yorkers.
New York City. And why should we dump more money into ineffective programs when we could trim the fat, become more efficient, more lethal, but more technologically powerful? Here's another point. You're 5 years removed from 9/11. You need a lot of money to rebuild Ground Zero, start up the camera programs that they want to start next year, do all of this. But as time goes by, if you're putting in effective systems, they should be efficient, and we should need less help from the feds and more direct involvement from the local municipalities to care for their own security.
Nevertheless, we have these revelations that only a couple of years ago they were looking at unleashing cyanide in New York City subways.
We're still getting $125 million. It's far. The point of the column that I wrote was really to say, look, whatever the budget is, the feds have to determine what that is. They've got to do it based on need. We got the most amount of need. And if you're going to talk about fairness to the rest of the nation, I think it's a bad signal for New York to say to the rest of America, you're not wanted here. We really are the star of the party. After
so you think New Yorkers are sounding a little arrogant?
There was a lot of goodwill towards New York after 9/11. We became the cultural capital again. Let's keep the goodwill going back and forth between us and the rest of the nation, because the entire nation is at risk. Every football stadium, every shopping mall in America.
All right, Kevin McCullough, thank you very, very much.
Thank
I think
you.
You're going to have to shield yourself when you walk outside
Maybe
the studios.
so. Well, if Schumer's out there, that's true.
Absolutely, thank you.